Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Friday or whatever day you are watching this. I'm Claire Wasserman. I am the founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and a book all about helping women earn more and live better. And I think today's guest shares that mission to an exact T. When I look through Lisa Carmen Wang's website and all the things she posts on Instagram, she's fantastic. You need to follow her. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So I'll give you a brief bio of who she is and what we'll be talking about, and then I will let her speak. So Lisa Carmen Wang is the founder of the Bad Bitch Empire and the author of the Bad Bitch Business Bible, 10 Commandments to Break Free of Good Girl Brainwashing and Take Charge of Their Body, Boundaries, and Bank Account. She had a completely other life before this, though, when she was a former 4-time national champion and USA Hall of Fame gymnast. She also was an ex-Wall Street hedge funder turned serial entrepreneur, angel investor, executive coach, global speaker. I know she dabbled in crypto. Lots more to talk about there. But in short, Lisa's mission is to empower women to build unapologetic worth and wealth to invest together in the next wave of billion-dollar impact-driven female-led businesses. I think ambition is, we need a better word than ambition. You're more than that, Lisa. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. How does it feel to hear your bio read back to you like that?
I mean, it's funny. It's like you never see yourself clearly and objectively, right? Because like I see myself every day when I wake up in the morning and when I look in the mirror. But at this point, it's one of the commandments in my book, the Bad Bitch Business Bible, is a bad bitch owns her wins. And I think that's one of the things that's just really important. Now I hear it. I used to feel like intimidated by my own thing and be like, oh, have that natural good girl tendency to be like, oh, it's no big deal. But I'm like, actually, I've worked my ass off to accomplish the things I've accomplished. And I feel really proud when I hear those things.
Good, good. I want everyone to be like that. By the way, I'm seeing here on LinkedIn, we've got folks saying hello and where they're calling in from, which is awesome. And by the way, we are simultaneously streaming to the Ladies Get Paid YouTube and Facebook pages. I was thinking about today, so our conversation is centered on kind of good girl brainwashing and how to break free of that. And so I was reflecting on kind of my own good girl brainwashing. And I think if I had to pick the biggest one, it probably would be that I married a man because I thought I was entirely straight. Now I'm expecting twins with a woman. So I'm curious for you, your process of coming to the realization that A, there was such a thing as good girl brainwashing, and B, figuring out what yours were or still are, and then of course how you wrap your mind around breaking through it.
Yeah. So I grew up as the perfect good girl, straight A student, Ivy League. I was a gymnast for 10 years, national champion, and kept going. When I went into Wall Street, I got a nice hedge fund job. I studied literature. There was no part of me that ever wanted to go into finance, but it was a good job, externally, got a lot of validation and approval from it. And I grew up really insecure, really shy, introverted, and I grew up in an all-white neighborhood as the only Asian girl and was made fun of and bullied growing up. And so I really lost my voice for the majority of my adolescence. And so a lot of what I was able to do as a gymnast, as an athlete, was because I couldn't speak and I didn't have that voice. I found that outlet on the mat where I could perform physically with my body and gain the approval, the gold medals, and really that success that I wanted to stand out and almost redeem myself because I was so not allowed in social circles. And so I think I found that success. And I think looking back, the external success that I gained by the time I was in my early 20s and I was working on Wall Street, I realized that there was this increasing disconnect between external success and internal self-worth. It was like, I know how to work hard. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a big dreamer and I go after those things and that has served me well. But it was like I was disconnected from the successes. And there was that imposter syndrome part of me of and it's funny because you asked in the beginning of this interview, how does it feel when someone reads your bio? For the longest time, I was ugh, when I hear my bio, it just gives me more pressure. It feels like I have to perform and be this person that like deep down, I'm just this like insecure, good, like little girl that just never was accepted. And I think that the process of even just noticing that gap, and it was like, it got worse because the more I achieved, the smaller I felt in comparison to what those accolades were, you know, on LinkedIn or on my resume. And so I realized like pretty soon after, I was like, I got to figure out how to close this gap because this is not working. And it's actually making me, it's like this inverse relationship that I get more insecure the more I achieve. Just like, I don't know why that was happening, but I think a lot of women deal with that because, you know, we don't own our wins. We don't really own our track record. We feel like almost embarrassed or like braggy or egotistical when we say like, yeah, I worked really hard and I did this. So I think simultaneously with that focus on external validation, it almost became like I felt like I lost myself. I was like, that question, who am I? Like, who is the authentic version of me? I think people, but especially women, have a very hard time answering that because we anchor our identity on what other people think about us or our relationship to other people. Like, I'm a good daughter. I'm a good girlfriend. I'm a good wife. I'm a good employee. I'm a good entrepreneur. I'm a good, like, whatever it is. But they're not just like, I am this magnetic, powerful being that was birthed into this world and is so worthy just because I am. And like that in and of itself is this rebellion because you're reclaiming your worth irrelevant of whatever you accomplish or that the world approves you for. And so, you know, it's a long way of basically saying like this has been a over a decade long process to really unleash this bad bitch inside of me. And then to even figure out like who is the baddest bitch, boldest, unapologetic, authentic version of me? Because there's like, I think for every woman in this experience of when you notice that there's something holding you back, that perfectionism, that people pleasing, that outsourcing of worth, you like either you kind of stay in that story and you stay small because it's more comfortable to play small and be the good girl than it is to like break out and be like, these are my boundaries. I'm owning my bank account. I'm owning my body, my voice, because the world will, and men will also like call you a bitch. They'll tell you it's inappropriate, whatever. We've all been there. But also like when you do decide to break free, there is that moment of resistance where you're like, is this really me? Because I'm so used to being this other good girl, small version of me. And then when you get resistance from the rest of the world, your friends, you know, maybe your family, your community isn't liking this new badass version of you, you're like, maybe it would be easier to revert back. And so I think it's that critical juncture for every woman who does decide they're like, I want more. I'm tired of being this good girl version of me. There's a more powerful, badass version of me here, that to just know that there is this like, you know, this difficult process of coming out as the new you, that you are going to experience resistance. And if you are experiencing resistance, that means you're on the right path.
I actually love that you use the word coming out, because in this LinkedIn post that I wrote this morning, I was talking about how my coming out journey was actually not so much about my sexuality, but about me, Claire, at the core, myself coming out. And then other things, of course, you know, come from that. But I mean, of course, I don't know, I can't distill this into just a couple of minutes here, but for this person out there who is like, all right, I'm ready to break free, but who am I at my core? Who am I without the externalities, the accomplishments, right? The outcomes. Where do you start? I mean, you start by getting your book and the Ladies Get Paid book, of course, but you know, where, you know, to lose an identity is an existential crisis, of course. And if you have constructed yourself according to this good girl brainwashing, that has provided you at least with some sort of framework, even if it's no longer working for you. So how do you develop this new framework for relating to yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm also going to say, like, I'm going through another rebirth now. I don't know if you experienced this after you published your book, but like when after publishing this Bible, I knew like something in me was going to change. It took 2.5 years, from getting the book deal to putting it out there. And like a lot happens in that time period. And I was like, the moment, because when I started writing this book, like the term bad bitch was like this alter ego persona. Like sometimes people look at this woman on the cover. I was looking at the woman at the cover when I was publishing it. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm that badass. Like 99% of the time. I'm like, most of the time I'm like kind of not sure what I'm doing, but like just going after it unapologetically. But I was like, I started and it was like this vision of this bad bitch that I wanted to be, but I wasn't yet. And I was like, there's who I am now and who I want to be. And there's this big gap. And in the meantime, I'm going to write this book, in just sharing the hard, good girl lessons I've learned. And then by the end of the book, after the 2.5 years and like many, many difficult things I went through in my personal life, that was just like almost sabotaged the book. Like that's a whole nother conversation. But I was like, by the end of the book, what happened was had this woman on the cover and I was like, I need to walk the bad bitch walk, because there's still areas in my life where I'm not fully asserting my boundaries. I'm not fully asserting my worth. And I can't.
Listen, you wrote the book for yourself too, just as much as you wrote it for all of us. You're like, because like if the book that you wanted to read was already out there, you would not have written this book.
Yeah.
So like, because and apologies for like interjecting on you, but I just find for those of us in this space of helping others, we are absolutely helping ourselves figure this stuff out too. And I think like we're just maybe one step ahead or just a couple steps ahead, but like we're still writing it for ourselves, just trying to go as quickly as possible.
You're like just trying to tell your past self, like encourage yourself. Like, here's the advice I would give to my past self if I could go back again. But yeah, and then like at the end, it's like having the audacity to call yourself a bad bitch. Now I'm just like, oh, I just am like, so to answer your question of like, where do you start? I think the number one place where it's like getting to your authentic self is this idea of desire and want and dreaming. Because if like growing up, we all have this prescribed like check boxes that we've been told we should have depending on our community and our parents and, whatever culture we came from. But, it's a certain level of you must succeed. You must have a certain amount of money. You must have like your life must look a certain way in order for you to be deemed successful and validated by this capitalist world that we live in. And I think at its core, the system, the professional world, the majority, tech, finance, all these things that we're in, they are male dominated. They are male run. We're playing with male rules. That's why women aren't getting funding, because we're fighting for scraps. And what we are so busy fighting and trying to get the little pieces that are left over for us, we never take the time to actually sit and center with ourselves and say like, what do I most deeply desire for me most in the world? And like, regardless of all of this, I just did a coaching session with some of our Bad Bitch Empire members. And one woman said, she's like very successful, like badass. And she's just like, I just want to take a month off and do absolutely nothing and tune everything out and just take a sabbatical. And I'm like, and she's like, I didn't even know that's what I wanted until there was space held for me to ask, what do I desire?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think when women are really allowed to drop in, like what we want is like, we want joy and ease and love and purpose. And like, we want to be authentically ourselves and not have to be put in a box. And so I think starting with like, what are areas in my life where I'm labeling myself or trying to squeeze myself into a label to fit in, because wherever you're doing that is where you're not allowing your full self to come out. And so being a bad bitch looks different to everybody, but it really comes down to like you allowing yourself to express authentically.
I love that. And knowing that resistance is inevitable, as it should be, again, to the point of like, if you've been operating in a certain way and adopted it as your identity, like it's scary to shed that, especially if you don't yet trust this new way of being. So for you in your resistance, whether it was internal, external, what did that look like? And then how did you work either through it or with it?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, again, like I mentioned, I'm going through a shift right at this present moment, going into 2024 as I've, the book was birthed 2 months ago. So I've been entering into, and it's interesting. I find women who like get to a certain level of success and are like a little bit tired of like the fighting in the material world. And they're just like, I don't want to be in these like male dominated rooms. Like I don't want to fight for a chair here. I'm
fucking tired.
actually, we're just like tired. And I'm like, this is not how my life is meant to be. Like one was actually tuning into, so I've always been like the woo, right? The spiritual stuff. I've always been like, I don't really get that because it's not measurable. It's not like there is no financial chart, but I think like a big part of me is actually leaning a lot more into my feminine. I've developed that masculine very strongly. And it's like, well, what does reconnecting with nature look like? What is reconnecting with a higher quantum field, like a different sort of energy where it's like, because this physical world ain't serving us. And someone imagined this and someone created this out of thin air. What is entrepreneurship besides like having an idea, taking it from the field and then like birthing it out into the world and getting other people to believe it, right? And so I think that as women, we've been stifled in our, like, again, our wholeness, our authenticity, like what it is that we actually energetically bring into the world. And so I've had resistance around like, I've been in all of these very technical fields, and the word manifestation, I was just like, I can't deal with that word until I was like, actually, it's just because it's a different language that I'm not used to. And then the more I kind of dipped into that, the more I've entered into spaces with women who have, been in that space a lot longer. And I'm like, wow, they take this very seriously. And why not? If you can have a whole religion of guys talking about Dogecoin and like Bonk on Solana, which just went up, or like whatever coin, right? They talk about it. Like, I just love when guys, I heard the conversation. It was like, yeah, we're like, how much are you selling your squiggles for? And what about your pudgy penguins? And I'm like, the fact that this is serious conversation boggles my mind. And
I do love the pudgy penguins though. And I have, wait, hold on. I have to continue talking. I'll be back in 1 second because I got to show you something.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say that the transformation ultimately and the resistance comes from like, I know friends who are investors in pudgies. They're cute.
We bought these for our kids. But I love, but you know what? It brings me joy. That's the thing. Like to your point of what are we valuing and shifting from maybe the like ROI and whatever to like maybe I'm just silly and happy in this moment with this.
I mean, it's like, isn't everything just a manifestation of how deeply you believe in it and like what you choose to see? And if you choose to see scarcity and you choose to see fear and rejection and failure and really just like difficulty. Like I was talking to another one of my coaching clients who is a badass female founder who's been trying to raise money for years and is just burnt out, tired, health problems, like everything, right? And so many women are experiencing like physical health issues, losing their periods, everything, because of the way the physical world is affecting their like spiritual, mental, physical, everything else. And so it's like, this is not working. So what does it look like if you did choose to believe in abundance and you chose to believe that my life is meant to be easy as a woman? My life, like I was born powerful. I wasn't born to prove myself, to try and gain validation from men who, quite honestly, most of the time can't even take care of themselves. And I've mentioned this, I've thought about this a lot, especially as an athlete, of like, we have men who are extremely overweight, don't go to the gym, who are running corporations. And I'm like, how do you think clearly when you don't even physically take care of yourself? Like, and like as women, we take care of ourselves, like when we can, like health is wealth. And so yeah, all to say is like, I think this idea of a spiritual awakening, which I think is like every time you have this like like mental shift. You're like, oh shit, there's a different perspective I could choose, right? I could choose to stay comfortable in my anxiety and fear and suffering and be the victim, or I could choose to believe in something that's going to serve me better and then operate from that place. Like I'm going to operate from the level that there is more than enough money to go around. There are people who are going to be drawn to me, who are going to be drawn to my message. I don't need everyone in the world to love me. There's plenty of people who can hate me. That's fine. This is not for you. But the people who love it will love it, and they will gravitate, and will make a difference in their lives. And so it was also another thing is just the power of learning how to stop caring what other people think is really, really important. And there's, as a leader, there's a very delicate balance of like, you need to care what people think, certain people, and then you need to simultaneously really not care what people think in order to pioneer. And so there's a decision of whose opinion are you going to care about, which are the people who you want to serve, who want to learn from you, who see what the change that you want to create and are like, I want to create that change for me too. And also getting to a point where this is where I think for all women is really important, going inward, right? And being like, even if nobody liked me, nobody cared about my message, I care so deeply about it. I believe in me. I trust myself. I love myself. And like, I got me. I have my own back. And I think so many of us haven't done the work to be like, I have my own back.
Yeah.
And that's the work you have to do alone, right?
Yeah, and to do it consistently too, right? So what are, practical, whether they're daily or weekly, things that you do for yourself to strengthen yourself so that you can move through moments or many weeks of resistance?
Yeah. So there's an exercise in chapter 2 of my book, which is A Bad Bitch Takes Up Space, which is where I do this exercise about writing yourself a love letter, apologizing to yourself for the ways which you've mistreated yourself, and then your recommitment to how you will love yourself as your own best friend and best hype woman and be there for yourself, and actually writing it down and reading it out loud to yourself, like hearing your voice saying, dear Lisa, I'm so proud of you for all these things that you've done. And, I'm so sorry for calling you all these shitty names and like mistreating you and not prioritizing you. And I promise that I will really love you and accept you for who you are, because that's what you deserve. And so that's a really powerful exercise. I have prompts in the book to do that. But also it's just being very vigilant about your internal narrative. Like every time I catch myself being like, oh, that was stupid. Like, why did you say that? I'm like, nope, that is not the thought that I choose. And I've noticed how I have much less of that negative thought patterns now. Like every time I hear the doubt, I'm like, what's the alternative thought that I could be choosing? Because that's not my voice. And it's like, one thought that I really like that I've cultivated recently, and it also has to do with I've started boxing and using heavier weights and just like really focusing on strength. It's just like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. Like I'm like pushing through it. Like I can do this. And like when you combine that physical and that mental, I'm just like, and I pump myself up. I'm like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things, and I'm like, yeah, you're a survivor. You thrive. You're a warrior, and like all those things are really crazy.
Yeah. It's funny. When I was writing my book, I also, I got a personal trainer, and because I'm just never going to work out if I don't have any accountability. But what got me through my training sessions was I was channeling frustration about the book writing process through that. I find that a lot of what I do, let's say it's working out or walking or writing or things that are seemingly, quote, not work related, they make me better at my work, which really shows how holistic all of this is. If you want to level up in one area of your life, you don't necessarily go hard at that part of your life. You might actually want to take a huge step back and just see if there's other things could even just be as, quote, straightforward as getting more sleep, right? Taking care of your body, that will then have this beautiful domino effect and just make it more, I'm not going to say easy, but with ease, that you can then level up in, say, finances. For all the, I mean, you cover so much ground in the book. In our final minutes, maybe talk to me about your, I mean, not to make you choose your favorite parts of the book, but like the lessons that you decided to share, or stories that you decided to share that were just so poignant for you, because they're really, I mean, we talk about boundaries, body, bank account, level of alliteration there. So yeah, I mean, even for you figuring out what you wanted to talk about and how to do it in a cohesive, focused way. I mean, what was that process like? And then any favorite stories you want to share as we close out?
Yeah, well, there's a reason why it goes body, boundaries, then bank accounts. It's a third of the book. And it's your body is your relationship with yourself. The woman in the mirror, your voice, your actual physical body. Boundaries is your relationship with other people in the external world. And then bank account is your relationship with your bank account and money. Yeah. And I think that's the progression with which is actually the most important. And so when I was writing this with the title Bad Bitch Business Bible, it's like about business. And I was like, okay, so the women who are reading this like really care about building wealth and like doing well in their businesses. But I can't just write a tactical business book because that's not my journey. It's almost, I think like 90% of my journey has been this relationship with self. And then once this ever evolving relationship with self, because every time you collide with the external world, you're like, oh shit, I didn't hold my boundaries. I didn't realize that, and you're like a constant recalibration. And it's like only at the end can you act. And again, because your wealth is so intertwined with your belief about yourself and your interactions and ability to hold those standards with other people. And so I think, it's really hard for me to choose a chapter that I really love, but I think I really liked, so we talk about one of the boundaries side, a bad bitch curates her crew. So about this, it's commandment number 5, and it's about the people you surround yourself with and how as you're leveling up and growing, a lot of times we have to let go of the people who aren't growing with us. And I have a very, it's pretty strict sometimes. It's like, if you want to level up, like you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And so if someone is just coasting, like you do an inventory every year, right? Like, what do you have to clean out? What's no longer adding value? And it is a reciprocal relationship, right? It's like you add value to the people in your life, they add value back. But I've had to cut out a lot of people just due to, in this chapter, we talk about your core values. Let's define what your core values are. And then like do an inventory. Are the people around you, do they have those same values or not? And how I also share a story of I think all of us can kind of relate to it, a toxic partner at some point in your life, and how that affected all aspects of who you are. And then the other one, there is a bad bitch loves money. Which is what I started the bank account section with, and I really liked. And one big takeaway from there is that if there is any part of you that feels like you are stuck with making money, or you feel like there's a ceiling, like it's for some reason, like you just can't break that ceiling, the number one best way to overcome that is to invest in your most valuable asset, which is yourself. And a lot of times it can feel completely illogical, meaning investing in coaching, investing in a mentor, investing in, hiring, investing in your own IP, like something you can do for yourself that levels up your education, levels up your ability to your skill set, to believe in yourself. So today, like literally this morning, as I told you, because I'm on this shift moment too. And I'm like, I'm ready to call in more. I'm ready to call in my multi-million-dollar 2024, like golden year for my bad bitch empire. And I'm like looking around at the people who, like, I know women who have raised millions of dollars, and I've helped women do that. But I'm like, I'm not building a business where I want to be beholden to men or outside stakeholders. I want to build a different kind of business, and I know it's possible. So I was like, I need to find a mentor and a coach who's doing what I want to do, and she's further along. And like, I was talking to her last night, and this morning I pulled the trigger, and I was like, over $20,000 investment. I was like, let's go. Like, give me, I'm ready. And it was scary. I told her, I was like, I've never invested this much before in a coach, just like for a short amount of time. And she was just like, absolutely no pressure. But like, I went to her, right? And I was like, I see what you've done. I see how you made $2 million in 1 month using Instagram. And I'm like, I'm in. Like, I see that for you. I see that for me. And I want to learn from you.
Yeah.
And let's do this. And she's also doing it in like a feminine embodiment sort of way, where I'm like, not in the VC space. So I'm just like, yeah, you invest in yourself. And it was scary. And I was like, do I believe I'm going to make $20,000 back? Yeah, duh. And that trust in the universe, when you say, I'm going to put this money, pour it into me because I believe my value is going up exponentially, that's the confidence boost.
Yes, I think that's fantastic. I think that's good, excellent advice for everybody, no matter if they are an entrepreneur or full-time elsewhere. You got to be your own safety net, especially now with how, the layoffs that are happening. So investing in yourself, which can be expressed in a number of different ways, and investing, if it's not, money, it's time, and time is money too. So speaking of which, we are at time. I am so glad that you were this generous with yours. Tell everybody how they can find you, follow you, and most importantly, pay you.
Yes. So 2 different websites you can go to for coaching, lisacarmenwang.com, badbitchempire.com. Get on the email list, check out the podcast, get the book, social media, Lisa Carmen Wang everywhere.
Fabulous. Okay. And for me, I'm clairewasserman.com, also ladiesgetpaid.com. Claire gets paid on Instagram. Thank you to you, Lisa, and for everybody here, and for your wonderful comments. Just a shout out to Paulina, who wrote, "This is exactly what I need to hear today. I have my own back." Good. We got, and then Raven goes, "Bodies, boundaries, bank accounts, triple B's." I love it. Raven, there's more than just triple B's. You look at the whole title of Lisa's book.
That business travel, body, boundaries, bank account. Yes. And also check out the podcast. I just dropped an episode on raising self-respect. Ooh. And I shared, so it's a Bad Bitch Empire podcast. I talk about how I took myself out on this date, and 2 journaling prompts to raise your self-respect, and really focus on that.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you for your work. Thanks to everybody for being here with us and investing in yourself. Now, go get paid. Bye. See you soon.
Bye.